Desiree Baccus, and I'm going to call this Radiant Waves, because what I have found is that I do a lot of public relations support for amateur radio, and one by one, more organizations and clubs keep coming to me and asking me to please support their group and share some of my lessons learned with them, and I just can't reach everybody. So I think it's better that I start maybe documenting some of this and being able to share it with our community, and so we can disseminate it out a little bit quicker and a little bit faster, and maybe we can amplify the efforts that I'm already doing. So I am again going to be calling this Radiant Waves, because just like, you know, waves that we all are very attuned to, I want to make sure that the ripples just keep going. And so if you see something here that's of value that you would like to share with your community or your club, please do so. You know, it's up to you. Initially, I'm sure that this is really only going to reach people that actually know me, or that come to me directly and ask for, you know, this kind of support. And I'm just at my limits at this point. I just can't take on any more. So first I will just give you guys a brief, synopsis of who I am and what I've been doing. So again, my name is Desiree Baccus. I am November 3 Delta Echo Zulu. I am an extra. I love amateur radio. I've been doing it for about 9 years now. And I can't say enough about it. There's so many amazing, wonderful things and people in this hobby that it's going to keep me, you know, engaged for years and years and years to come. So what I am currently doing in amateur radio is for ARRL, our National Association for Amateur Radio. I am on their public relations committee. And so there's a core group of us that kind of speak to, you know, outreach and how we do this and, you know, all that other stuff, and kind of help to guide our public information officers and disseminate information to you when we find something that's really interesting or of importance, or we amplify what you've got going on. So keep that in mind. It's not just a one-way street. It's definitely a two-way street. We work for you, and you know, we work for you, and we, you know, we're always here for you. So give them information to us and we'll share whatever we get. So keep that in mind. I've been doing that for about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years now. And then I also am the Chief Marketing Officer for Rocky Mountain Ham Radio, which is an organization out here in Colorado, which is where I live, that covers repeaters, on the backbone for amateur radio throughout Colorado, into New Mexico, and into Wyoming. And so they do a lot of stuff. They're just a service organization, and I'm sure we'll get into more of that kind of structure, but you'll be kind of surprised as you go along with any of these videos to learn more about them. They're amazing, amazing group of people. So I work for them doing that. I'm also on the amateur radio for the International Space Station team, and I do public relations outreach for their special events, and then also I help with their reporting. And so always fun to still work with NASA. I have 15 years with NASA prior to doing what I do now with all the amateur radio stuff. So it's nice to be able to blend both my hobby that I'm passionate about and NASA, which I'm also passionate about. And so working with the ARIS team is like a dream come true for me. So that's pretty awesome. I also am still the station trustee for the NASA Ames Research Center's club station there at Moffett Field, and that's NA6MF. And Moffett Field, NASA 6, California, and Moffett Field, NA6MF. And so I just kind of keep up that paperwork for them and check in with them, you know, whenever they need me. And then I also work for a really awesome group of people down in southern Colorado, which is the Deep Space Exploration Society, and they have like a 65-foot dish that's out in the middle of nowhere that they have rebuilt and repurposed. They got a wonderful scholarship from ARDC, and they built a building for doing public outreach and stuff, for hitting STEM communities and things like that out in that community. But we've got some really exciting things coming up from them, so I'm sure you're going to hear more about them as the years go on. But I'm on their public relations committee. I am the chairperson for that committee, and then I'm also the director for their public relations and media outreach. So that's what I do for them. And then I'm also on the domestic preparedness journal advisory board, and that is a published journal. It's digital and published, hard published, and they do a lot of the public outreach for emergency preparedness. And that's kind of how I got into amateur radio. So I keep my foot in there. I review things. If you are in areas or do anything with the emergency preparedness and amateur radio, feel free to contact me. If there's a story that you want said or told or shared with the broader community of the emergency community, let me know, and I'll see what we can do, and including help you to get published in that magazine as well. So feel free to reach out to me for that. And then I'm also on the Colorado Federal Executive Board, on their Emergency Preparedness Council. And so that's where all the federal agencies kind of come together, and they share resources and training opportunities and things like that. So things that are happening in our community, I kind of keep a pulse on that with them. So that's kind of what I've been up to. But now you can see why I'm juggling all these hats. And so this is, I think, the best way for me to be able to disseminate this information out to everybody. I'm just going to share this with you and start making some videos. And so hopefully they'll get better. But right now, this is what we've got going on. So just bear with me. And if there's something that I haven't covered that you're interested in, also send me an email. It's N3DEZ@ARRL.net. And I'll see if I can't incorporate it into one of my next videos that I've got going on for you. So today what I wanted to say is, even with all those hats that I wear, it's really important, no matter what your station is or role that you play in amateur radio, it's constantly this flux that happens, right? And so you just got to stay humble and keep bringing people in. When people look at you and they say, "Oh my gosh, you're amazing. You've been doing this for 50 years or whatever," not me, when they come to you and they say that and they're like, "I could never learn that." And it's like, oh, yes, you could. Anybody can do it. There's, stay humble and connect them to people that are kind of like them. Like we have out here a really amazing woman, Pat Olson, who is the president of her club, the Tri-Lakes group. And she's a veterinarian by trade. And so when you're talking not necessarily a technical trade going into amateur radio and absolutely loving it, everybody gets into amateur radio. You just got to find the connecting dots. And so that's where public relations really speaks to my heart, with being able to amplify the message for amateur radio. And so that's kind of what I'm going to do here. I want to be able to connect those dots. So that's kind of why I'm creating these videos and wanting to share that information with you. And so it is, for me, amateur radio has been the connection of my passion and finding my purpose. So amateur radio is something that I kind of found out about. Again, I started through the community emergency response team training. I was very fortunate in my training. They had one day of amateur radio training that they had, and I had a very amazing Elmer at that time that picked me up and said, "I want you, this new person going through this training, I want you to be in charge of the radio." And I was like, "Oh, no. I am a scribe. I will write down things. I will take notes. I'm really good at that." And he says, "No, you're going to be in charge of the radio." And I was like, I don't know how that's going to go over. And by the end of the day, I wouldn't put it down. Like, I wouldn't give it back. Like, I was just having so much fun talking to people and having conversations and checking, doing all the things that we needed to do. So they incorporated that in it. And part of the people from the CERT group were also from the amateur radio community out in Silicon Valley. And they really connected us right away to amateur radio groups in the area. And so it was when I graduated from my program, it was like in May. And obviously in June, we have our field day. And they had invited me to field day. And I was like, oh, I'm not so sure that that's going to happen. Like, I'm not so sure that I'm going to, do that. And when field day came, they sent out another invite, another little nudge. And I went. And I actually snuck away from my family, my husband, my kids. And I went to the park where they were all set up. And I went down there, and there was a kid. I'm not kidding you. He was maybe 9th grade, if not in junior high at the time. He was a young guy that was on the GOTA station. He was actually manning the GOTA station. And so his dad had been a longtime ham, and he was a longtime Boy Scout. And he got me on the GOTA station, and the whole day, I just sat there and did that, nothing else. I was like, oh, if somebody comes, I'll get off. If somebody comes, I'll get off. And the poor kid never got to get on the radio. So he was there helping me the whole time, really was my kind of partner in crime and writing things down. And I was making contacts left and right. And it was really, really exciting. So after that, I ended up getting a little handheld. And one of the guys from that group helped me, get it all put in. And then I just started doing nets. And then I started running the nets. And so, you start precept by precept, step by step, little by little, and then you become more proficient at it. And pretty soon you turn into me. So good luck with that. It's not just financially, kind of ramps up, but it's also responsibility wise and how invested you are in the people and the hobby and the passion and the purpose of what it brings to the community. So, like I said, I started with emergency preparedness. Obviously, I still have my foot in it a little bit, but it's so much bigger than just emergency preparedness that I'm very much amplifying every part of it at this point. So there's that. And then what I wanted to say for public relations, the most important thing for you, the person watching this, is for you to remember that you're amplifying your spark. So the most effective person that's doing amateur radio, and I don't care if you're a very quiet and timid person, if you didn't have a spark in you for amateur radio, you wouldn't be here listening to this video right now. So it's really important that you find your spark. And once you do, you can amplify it and you can ignite that. And like I said, in amateur radio, there's so many different avenues that can really ignite that spark. You just got to find the one that's that connecting dot, right? So for me, obviously I worked at NASA for many years, and astronomy was very exciting to me. So being able to do a moon bounce was like a highlight of my life. And so I'm sure you can find that video out there. And it was exhilarating. I mean, absolutely fun. So that was part of my spark, right? Maybe that's your thing. Maybe it's, radio astronomy where you want to find a comet and name it after your dog or your cat or your mom or whomever. You can do that too, yourself, your club, whatever you want to do. So there's all sorts of things to do there, chasing CubeSats in space. I actually worked with people that actually built the CubeSats and launched CubeSats. So trying to wrangle them into NASA on the air and getting them to make those connections with the public and be able to share our current and past and future missions that we had done and our successes at NASA, that really helped to amplify my spark and start this fire. And so, but whatever it is for you, it might be POTA, getting out into the parks and being able to, make contacts there. Or if it's SOTA, here in Colorado, we have 58 mountain peaks that are over 14,000 feet tall. We have a ton of summits. So Summit on the Air is a huge thing here in Colorado. And maybe that's your thing. And so maybe that's why you get into amateur radio. But like I said, there is a connection dot to everybody, but you've got to find your spark. Where is your spark? Is it making those connections or collecting QSO cards or, the QSL cards, or making contacts, or getting a big list, or reaching worked all states, or, getting all the continents, or things like that? Whatever it is, grab onto your spark, and that's where you start, right? In public relations, if you're going to amplify a message, it should be one that you bring passion to, one that you believe in. If it's the message of your club or your organization or your friendships or your community or your town, then amplify that. If it's going out and doing the communications for events in your community, like your fairs or your, fun runs or whatever you have going on, there's a ton of reasons why amateur radio gets picked up in community service. And so amplify those things. And once you find your spark and you're able to share that, then it ignites that fire more, right? It stokes that fire to make it something bigger and brighter than just a spark. And so it amplifies that in you, but it also shares that with the greater community. So not just with the amateur radio operators that are in your area, but outside of that to your community at large, and being able to say, oh, well, I thought amateur radio, was going away, and you could say, oh my gosh, look at this chart. It's off the chart. It just keeps growing. So, those kind of things. People that just don't realize, it's just because they just don't realize. And so you being able to amplify that and share that, it's important. And so for me in amateur radio, we have so many technically brilliant people that they're often overshadowed. Often overshadowing those of us like me that can amplify them, because they don't amplify themselves. If anything, they want to sit in a darkened room with the lights off, and they want to code, or they want to, they're the inventors, they're the creators, they're the brilliant minds of our society, and they need us. They need us, people like me and people like you, in order to amplify their message and to sustain this hobby in the long term. It just is. So thank you for being here. Thank you for wanting to be a part of this mission and to find your spark. The other thing that I really want to encourage you, if you are new to amateur radio, or if you're not, it is important for you. The most important thing that I can share about public relations is about getting a mentor. So whether that is me, virtually, someone you may never ever meet in person, or if it's somebody that is, your next door neighbor, a friend of yours, a mom, a dad, things like that. And so amplifying your message, getting a mentor, or having an Elmer is not just about, we sometimes get caught up in this thought that being an Elmer or having an Elmer, or when we're seeking out an Elmer, you're looking for somebody that knows everything. And in amateur radio, the longer that I'm in amateur radio, the one thing that I know is you will never, and I don't care how much you study and if you started when you were born, until the time that you pass away, an entire life, if you lived, 150 years, you would not be able to know everything there is to know about amateur radio. So what you instead find is Elmers are people or operators that know one thing really, really well, right? So what is it that you can be an Elmer in? What is the one gift that you have that you could share with everybody? And for me, That's public relations. And so that's kind of where I'm at. Find your Elmers and don't be afraid to get new ones. So a different process, a different thing, a maker, grab him. I've had many different kinds of Elmers for different processes and different things in my learning as I've grown in amateur radio. And so I've roped in my family into it. I've, done all sorts of things as this has grown. But Elmers look different for everybody, and they don't have to be somebody that's tangible. If you're not a very touchy-feely, huggy person like me, right, I wouldn't be a very good resource to be your amateur radio Elmer in a lot of things. Maybe in this environment, it's a little bit easier because I'm just on a flat screen, and so that keeps you safe, which is cool. For me, I am, I gravitate to the physical bodies. So I want somebody that's in person that can show me hands-on, that I can say, wait, you're over my head, stop, rewind, that kind of a thing. But it might be somebody that's in a book or a historical figure that, has been in amateur radio before and that you find inspiring. It might come from an article in a QST magazine, or it might come from an actual, story of their life, like Ada Lovelace or something like that. So, or Hedy Lamarr, these kind of things. So these individuals that really inspire you and on your journey through amateur radio, they can all be considered mentors. So even though they're not necessarily somebody you can hold on to or hug or, that kind of thing, we also have a wonderful resource with YouTube where so many wonderful hams have put information out there, DIY things, things where you can, learn hands-on training, education, everything that you could possibly want in each avenue that you could possibly want to do it in amateur radio. So find an Elmer and just realize that there's a couple key things that I want to share about that with you. One is, don't be afraid to become an Elmer yourself. When you become really good at something, like me with public relations, be willing to share it. Don't just hoard that information and keep it to yourself. We owe it as human beings to be able to share that knowledge and spread that to other people. And so whatever it is that you are good at, whatever it is that is your spark, that is your passion, I urge you to share it. Whether it's in a talk with your community, putting it out online, doing whatever it is, writing an article for a publication, just being able to share that with, the guy that you're standing in line with at the grocery store, waiting in the longest line of all century, and you just have to strike up a conversation because you're going to be there for 14 years. One of those kind of things. How do you bring that up? And the more that you do, the easier it'll become. And so not everyone will be receptive to it, but that's okay. I try to find a connecting dot before I throw amateur radio on you. And that helps to open that door. So when I find out someone's a teacher, I talk about the Teachers Institute, and I talk about STEM education and about how amateur radio is really great STEM education in communities. If I'm talking to somebody and they're a rancher, and I'll start talking to them about 4-H and about how teaching children in 4-H about RFID tags and how that's all radio waves and what that means and how that translates to them, and why amateur radio is more beneficial than other resources that they might think is available to them when they're doing cattle drives or something like that, and the reasons why. If I'm talking to a young person that really likes doing RVing, not RVing, but overlanding, or the adventure Jeep stuff that they do, where they're going through the backwoods and going up these steep inclines and all this other stuff. I always talk to them about how it's important for them to have a secondary form of communication when they're out of cell phone range. Here in Colorado, we have some beautiful just absolutely gorgeous country. And so people come here to play a lot during the summer and the winter, and it's just an adult playground out here. And so whether you're in the backcountry for skiing during the winter, up at Vail or Breckenridge, and you're outside of cell phone signals, you want to be able to have some kind of communication that you can say, hey, there's a skier down, or I'm in trouble. Can you, I'm going to need some help. I'm stuck on a ledge, or, this kind of thing. You got a bear chasing you. I don't know. So I also let people know about the wilderness protocol, and that, where you guys can reach out and, call people and let them know that you're in need of assistance at the top of every hour and things like that. So being able to share those things with people is really, really important. But that's kind of the whole purpose of finding an Elmer, getting an Elmer, finding a niche, and being able to share that and connect those dots with people. That's really the basics of public relations. So I know this is kind of a little bit longer of a talk. It's 30 minutes roughly so far. So I just want to kind of wrap this up real quick for you and just say that my next videos will be also breaking down amateur radio and public relations for you. So take a look at the titles, take a look at the chapters. You don't have to watch them all. You can always, piecemeal what is important to you. But it is so important that we amplify amateur radio for our clubs, our communities, other operators, and let people have this opportunity that we have for ourselves. And so sharing it and amplifying it is so important. And that's why I'm going to start doing these videos. So, like I said, this is my first one. I'm hoping they will get better, but just know that I want to bring value to you. So make sure that you look at the titles of everything that's out there. And I'm just going to let you know of a couple of things that I'm going to have. I have plans for so far, but like I said, if there's things out there that you are interested in and you want to hear about, please let me know and I can, work on that as well. So I'm just going to go over some of the topics that I have kind of what I want to do. I think going forward with you guys is the next video that I'm going to do is on the basics of public relations. And so I just will talk to you about having a path and a plan, and because without that you can't move forward. And then also talk to you a little bit about how change is hard, and that's normal. So when you get kickback or you get like some not so supportive, group members maybe that don't want to go in a certain direction that you're proposing, know that that's okay. But also being persistent and not just taking no for an answer. How do you then scale it back or, negotiate to keep moving forward? And progress is the end goal there. And part of that is also knowing your worth. So being in public relations to amateur radio, there's a lot of people that, feel like, well, you are not a technical person, so you can't do that. But dude, I've been working in IT for so many years, 15 years, and I have supported so many of them. I get more of it than you would realize. And so the things that I don't know, I know how to ask questions about. And that's how most of us are, right? Most of our society today is so widely immersed in IT and coding and doing all these basic things, even down to the very easiest and smallest part of like maybe macros in an Excel sheet. Those little tiny things we can all build upon. Whatever your base of knowledge is, it doesn't matter. We can build upon it. And that's what makes it so exciting, because you see it differently than the person next to you, even though you guys have the same career, same path. We all see things just a tiny bit differently, which means we can find solutions to things better through more diversified eyes, right? And experiences. So that's pretty exciting. So knowing your worth, I want to focus on, for public relations especially, is focusing on the value added. So how do you not spin your wheels for things that just aren't worth it? And so that kind of a thing for you. And then we'll talk about how social media is really king right now in reaching out to other people and to the youth. Ever since the pandemic, social media is just a huge thing. And so I will talk about all of that on my next video. And then further down the road, I have plans to do videos on don't be afraid of getting into print media. And so we'll talk about how and doing that and sharing through print media and traditional media sources like news channels and things like that. And then also one that's going to be very, very popular, I know, but it is a huge ball of wax. So I'm hoping to get it into one video, but it might need to be two, and that's on fundraising. I know amateur radio and our clubs and our organizations are really strapped for cash, and we keep tapping into the same till. And so we need to diversify how we're doing it and to how to reach out and things like that. And that's kind of where I shine. So I definitely want to be able to do a really good job on those. So that might need to be a series, but I think that'll bring real value. So if you're coming in a little bit later in 2024 or in early 2025, you might see that series, and I would strongly suggest that you go and check those out. And then I also want to do one on special events. So how do we support in public relations special events that you're having, whether that's your field day opportunity, or if it's in your community, you're going to be supporting a fun run or something like that, and you really want to amplify it. Your jamboree on the air, or that your school is going to be doing a ARIS contact. What do you do and how do you do it in order to amplify those messages for special events? And then the next thing that I want to talk about is the importance of telling your story. And there's 12 stories that I like to share with people about amplifying for their organizations and their clubs. And that really seems to help them get memberships and do those kind of things. So these are all up and coming topics that you'll see happening, and I'm going to try to keep them all under an hour long. So if you have any questions or concerns, you can always put them in the comments, or again, send the email to me at November 3 Delta Echo Zulu at arl.net. And I'm also on QRZ. So feel free to reach out to me at any time. And if there's something that you would like to have, captured, let me know. I can definitely do that. And then I'll get that on the list. But like you said, like you have seen, I have a kind of a list in front of me, but I'm really excited about getting these and being able to share them and share this with all of you. So thanks again for checking it out. And hopefully I'll have more good information for you to follow.